Welcome to the Private School Leader Podcast, where private school leaders learn how to thrive and not just survive as they serve and lead their schools. I strongly believe that it is possible to have a long and happy and fulfilling career as a private school leader. And my passion is to help you figure out exactly how to do just that, right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. And I'm your host, Mark Minkus. So if you're listening to this in real time, it's early January, and you have just experienced one of the weirdest weeks of the year. And that week is the week between Christmas Day and New Year's Day. It's a pretty weird week. And schedules kind of go out the window, and you eat when you're hungry and you sleep when you're tired. And, you know, we're very schedule-oriented people. Our lives are pretty well managed and controlled by the school calendar and by the bell schedule, but that all goes out the window in that week between Christmas Day and New Year's Day. And then also, if you're watching anything on TV, you'll see lots of commercials for gym memberships, for things that help you quit smoking, and big sales at stores on, bins and things that will help you get organized. And of course, that's all about the new year, new you, New Year's resolutions, trying to improve yourself. And as that calendar flips to January 1st, that we want to look forward and we want to get it all together and have a great year. Okay. But I've never really been a big fan of New Year's resolutions. I was looking at a recent survey, and it said that about 80% of people who make New Year's resolutions are very confident that they will keep them. But only about 9% of New Year's resolutions actually last through the year. So with a 91% failure rate, New Year's resolutions are pretty hard to keep. And so the reason that I'm talking about New Year's resolutions is because there is still time for the second half of the school year to be the best, to make this the best school year that you've ever had. And like I said, if you're listening in real time, it's early January, and there is still time, even if you're listening to this later than that, there's still time to make this the best year ever, to make 2025 a really great year. And certainly to have a great year, you have to get off to a great start. And so on today's episode of the Private School Leader Podcast, we are going to answer 3 questions that will help us have a great start to 2025. But before we get to that, I want to give you a free gift to say thank you for listening to the podcast. And this is called The 6 Things That Every Private School Teacher Wants from Their Leader. And this guide is a 6-page PDF that I think can be a real game changer for you. And I guarantee you that if you do these 6 things, the teachers at your school will be happy to follow you. And you can pick up your free guide by going to theprivateschoolleader.com/guide to get the 6 things that every private school teacher wants from their leader. And you may have heard me talk about this guide before on the podcast. Maybe you've even downloaded it before. But I'd encourage you to either go back and look at it again or to download it, because these 6 things, since we're in the mindset of starting a year, having a great year, getting 2025 off to a great start, these 6 things are really the key to you and your leadership at your school. So check that out. It's there for you for free, and you can download that at theprivateschoolleader.com/guide. And, I want to tell you something that you already know, and that is that being a private school leader is a very, 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 very difficult job. You have to make hundreds of decisions every day, and you have to keep everyone safe and increase enrollment and keep the parents happy and keep the board happy and motivate your teachers and keep your teachers and deal with student discipline and increase retention and just beat last year's test scores. And, oh, by the way, come in under budget, and, when all that's said and done, then make sure you take care of yourself. So we know what that leads to. It leads to feeling tired and overwhelmed and discouraged and stressed out. And I've been there. You've heard my story. And, at the beginning of every episode, I say that I believe that it is possible for you to have a long and happy and fulfilling career as a private school leader. And I want to ask you a question. Is that what you want? Do you want to go from feeling the way that you felt during the first half of this school year, feeling the way that you felt in November and December, just trying to make it to winter break? Do you want to go from that to feeling energized and fulfilled and actually looking forward to going to school? I know that might sound like a pipe dream, but it is possible. And I can guide you through this transformation step by step, strategy by strategy. And if you would check out the online course called Thrive Academy, everything that I've learned over the past 33 years of how to do this thing that we do, but how to do it in a way that makes you feel happy and fulfilled and takes good care of yourself and your family. Just check it out over at theprivateschoolleader.com/thrive. And it has been a life-changing course for dozens of Thrive Academy students, and I want you to get that same benefit. So check out Thrive Academy over at theprivateschoolleader.com/thrive. Okay. So today's episode is all about one thing, and that is ensuring by the last day of school, you can say, that was my best school year ever. If you were to talk to someone on the last day of school, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a family member that you haven't seen in a while, and they ask you, oh, okay, it's around the last day of school. How was your school year? That was the best school year ever. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, yeah, right. The first half of the year was not good. Well, there's still plenty of time in this school year, and I know that it may feel like you're already deep into that grind and deep into the school year, and you are, but I need you to trust me here that there is still time, and you have the power to make the second half of this school year better and to make it that you could stop on the last day of school and look back and be like, that was the best school year that I've ever had. And so how on earth is that possible? Well, it starts with visualizing a very specific moment, and I'll talk about that more in a moment. And then the next step is to ask yourself 3 very powerful questions, and then to make sure that those answers are true. And I'm going to take good care of you because I've created a worksheet that will have these 3 questions on it. You can print it out on your printer or on the copy machine and just take, 15 or 20 minutes and answer these questions, jot down some thoughts, and you will, I'm telling you, this is something that can absolutely change the second half of your school year so that on the last day of school, you can feel like this was the best school year ever. So I know that might be hard to believe, but I'm just asking you to hang in there with me, and I will walk you through it. So depending on whether usually most of you listen to this podcast while you're running errands or commuting or working out or doing errands, and walking the dog, those kinds of things. That's awesome. And if there are a few of you who want to actually have this worksheet while you're listening to the podcast, you could go to theprivateschoolleader.com/episode 116, and that will be there for you in the show notes. But most of you will probably just want to listen and then go back and print that out at a point in the future, the near future, hopefully, and then go through and jot some things down on that worksheet. So I said that the first step is to visualize. So let me tell you what you're going to visualize. I want you to think about this. It's the last day of school. The kids have left for the day. The kids have left for the summer. And even though you probably have a couple of teacher PD days left, your teachers have left for the day. And so there's all the excitement There's all the relief. There's the feeling tired. There's the feeling good about, we checked that box and we got that school year under our belt. And certainly it's not like your summer has begun, because there's still a lot to do to wrap up the school year. But very specifically, I want you to visualize that you're in your office, you're at your desk, the school year has just finished, the kids have just left, and the teachers have left. And you're feeling some relief, you're feeling tired. Last day of school. So do you have that in your head? Okay. So that's what you're visualizing. And then on that last day of school, in that moment, sitting at your desk, you're going to ask yourself 3 questions. And I'm going to walk you through each of those questions. Now, here's the part that's going to be the thing that makes the difference. We're not going to wait until the last day of school to ask these questions. We're going to ask these questions of ourselves today. And then we're going to do a couple of things to make sure that the answers that we give today are actually true when we ask ourselves this question again on the last day of school. Okay? So we're kind of getting in our time machine. We're going into the future to the last day of this school year, asking ourselves these 3 questions, and then we're going to take a couple of action steps to make sure that these answers are true when the last day of school actually rolls around. All right. Question number 1. On the last day of school, how do I want to feel about my job at school? How do I want to feel about my job? So, this is kind of the foundation of, we try not to have it be that our identity is the school, but being a private school leader, it's a huge part of our life. And so, we want to connect to things that are meaningful. We want to have a purpose in our life. We want to work hard to make a difference in the lives of kids and teachers and families. And so we do. And this is a lot of work, but it's also stressful and exhausting, and it can be overwhelming. But when you look back on the school year, on the last day of school, how do you want to feel about your job? Do you want to feel fulfilled? Do you want to feel proud? Do you want to feel energized by what you accomplished during the school year? Do you want to feel like you made a difference? Do you want to feel like you had a significant impact on your students and on your teachers? Do you want to feel like you grew as a leader? Do you want to feel like you were effective in improving the culture at your school? What do you want to feel? How do you want to feel on that last day of school about your work? Now, I just want to pause and I want to say, you know what? These feelings are possible. Because here's the thing. This is obviously aspirational. We're not going to say, I want to feel terrible. I want to feel overwhelmed, burnout, and one step out of the hospital. Of course, that's not what we're going to aspire to do. These feelings are aspirational, but these feelings are also possible, but these feelings don't come true by accident. And so to get there, we're going to be intentional. This podcast is all about taking action and being intentional. And so every decision you make now and the things that you do between today and the last day of school need to be aligned with the answers to those questions about how you want to feel. So let's talk strategy, okay? And I am going to try to keep this simple. And again, this will be on the worksheet on the show notes, and you can work through this and just jot a few things down. But your actionable strategy for question number 1 is that you're going to pick 2 things that you want. So let's say that one thing that you want is you want to get into classrooms more often during the second half of the year. And the reason I bring that one up is because with my coaching clients and with my Thrive Academy students, I would say that at least 80% of school leaders, private school leaders, when I say, what is the thing that you wish that you could do more of at school? Or, finish this sentence. I really wish I had more time to blank. I'd say it's about 80% that say I need to get into classrooms more often. Okay. So you're going to pick two things that you want to be able to say, yeah, I got into classrooms more often. That was great. Or maybe I checked email less often. I really got a handle on my email inbox. And you're like, yeah, right. Well, I'll link in the show notes a recent episode called Your Email Inbox is a Chronological List of Everyone Else's Priorities. And it gives you some strategies as to how to get in control of your email inbox. Maybe you think back on the second half of the school year and you think, well, I want to improve the culture. I want to hang on to my teachers. I want to follow through with parents with more courage and consistency because I've been really letting that slip. So the key here is to not get a long list, but to just pick two. Because I think if you pick more than two, it becomes overwhelming and it's very unlikely that it's going to happen. And so let's say that one of the ones that you pick is I want to get into classrooms more often. So step one is to pick two things. Step two is to schedule it. So what do I mean by schedule it? Well, we have good intentions. But if we don't schedule our good intentions, they are never going to happen. And so if you want to get into classrooms more often, you have to put it into your calendar as an appointment with yourself and then treat that appointment like it was a doctor's appointment that took you 6 months to get. Treat that appointment like it is the most important donor to your school that is coming to the school to meet with you to talk about a gift to the school. So if you have these ideas in your head and you have these actionable strategies, then you're going to be able to just pick, like I said, pick one or two of these strategies and schedule it into your calendar and then, treat it with the importance that it deserves. And a quick example of getting into classrooms, I've mentioned it before on the podcast. What I do is once a week I have an hour where it says pop-ins on my calendar. And being in charge of 4th through 8th grade, I have 4th through 8th grade and I have 2 sections, 2 homerooms per grade. So that means my students are in 10 different locations at any given time. And so let's say it's Wednesday, 3rd period, and, all of my students are on the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th floor in the building, and I'll go up to the 4th floor, and I'll go to either the gym or the music room or whatever, and just find a group of my students, and then I stay for 5 minutes, and I interact, and I, just enjoy being there and finding out what they're doing and just being in that room. As soon as that 5 minutes are up, boom, I'm on to the next room. And so 5 minutes per room, 10 locations for my kids. That's 50 minutes. And then build in a few minutes for traveling between rooms, and that's the hour. And so I've accomplished popping in, being visible, getting into those classrooms more often, and it's an hour a week. Is an hour a week a lot? Yes and no. But it's about intention, and it's about how important this is to you, and it's about how much you want to feel that way on the last day of school, that yes, I did accomplish those things. And so we're going to decide what they are, and then we're going to schedule it. And then the last thing that we'll do, and this will be repeated in question number 2 and question 3, is that once a week, I would suggest either on a Friday afternoon or maybe on a Sunday, but you're going to schedule 15 minutes and you're going to start a timer and you're going to spend 5 minutes reflecting on each of the 3 questions. 5 minutes times 3, 15 minutes. And you're going to ask yourself, check in with yourself. How's it going? You're going to celebrate the small wins. You're going to course correct if needed, because if you just decide that you're going to do the thing, but then you don't ever check up or check in or track it or make adjustments or celebrate when you actually do get into that classroom, then this isn't going to have any staying power and it's not going to happen. And so question number one, how do you want to feel on the last day of school? And we're going to pick two things. We're going to put them into our schedule. And then at the end of the week, once a week, we're going to take a few minutes to reflect and then celebrate or course correct as needed. Okay, question number two is, on the last day of school, how do I want to feel about my mental health and physical health? So now let's talk about you for a moment. As school leaders, it's easy to put everything and everyone before yourself. I was just talking to a coaching client this morning, and I asked her, I said, so are you at the bottom of the list or are you just not on the list? Because it was one or the other. And so that is kind of true about us, but it's not a good thing for our mind and our body and for the sustainability of this hard job that we do. And so if you're not taking care of yourself, it's impossible to lead effectively, and it's impossible to have a good finish to the school year or a good 2025. And listen, you are your most valuable asset. You can get another house, you could get another car, you could get new clothes, you could get all new furniture in your house if something happened. Here's the thing, there's only one you. You can't get another you. And by extension, you only have one family, your loved ones, your spouse, your partner, your kids, your friends. And so we need to focus on how you want to feel about your mental health and physical health. So again, let's do the visualization and then let's do the actionable strategy. And a reminder that this will all be in a worksheet that you can just use to go through this thought exercise and then operationalize it, and that'll be in the show notes. So you're sitting at your desk. It's the last day of school. The teachers have left. The kids have left. It's starting to get quiet in the building. And you're going to ask yourself, how do I feel? How do I feel physically? How do I feel mentally? Do you want to feel energized and clear-headed and strong, physically strong, and feel healthy, feel that energy? Do you want to feel mentally balanced and able to handle stress better than before? Do you want to feel a little less anxious? I mean, these things are possible. I'm confident that they're possible. I know that sounds like a pipe dream, but they're possible. So what's our strategy? So you're going to list your health non-negotiables. And again, I said before in question number one, I think we need to start small. Don't list 15 things that you're going to do about your health. Pick two. And so maybe it is going to bed at a certain time, and maybe it's drinking more water during the day. Okay. So pick two non-negotiables for your health, and then block off time. Put it into your schedule so that this happens. So for example, one of the reasons that most of us don't go to bed when we should to get the amount of sleep that we want or that we need is because we don't start getting ready for bed at a given time. We're always surprised, oh, I didn't realize it was so late. Whether we're working, whether we're watching something on TV, whatever it might be. And so to put into your schedule at X time, the little reminder goes off, and that's, you starting your nighttime routine to get ready for bed. And some of you have a 30-second nighttime routine and some have a much longer one, but whatever it is, if that's in your calendar, you're going to get more sleep, bottom line. And then also, moving your body. I've not been that consistent when it comes to exercise, but moving your body even at school, you can kill two birds with one stone. If you put into your schedule, you want to be more visible and you want to pop into classrooms. We all get kind of trapped in our office, but just being up and moving, my office is on the third floor. And so that requires a lot of steps. And just getting up and getting moving around in the building, but that's not going to happen unless we schedule it. And so we're going to, make it realistic. We're going to only pick 2, and then we're going to schedule it. And that's the physical health. And then for mental health, I just would say for being reactive, that when things happen and we're all stressed out and the fight or flight kicks in, the autonomic nervous system gets dysregulated, that we're going to get better at regulating our autonomic nervous system. So some breathing, some mindfulness, a decatastrophizing worksheet, drinking water first thing in the morning when you get up, when you're the most dehydrated. All of those things can help regulate your autonomic nervous system. So that's reactive. And then proactive, I would say to start a gratitude practice. Gratitude has so many positive benefits for your physical and your mental health. And so those are just 2 suggestions, but the bottom line is to just think about this question on the last day of school: how do I want to feel about my mental health and physical health? Remember, you're telling someone that this was the best school year, best year of my life, of my career. So what has to be true on the last day of school for you to feel that way about your physical health and your mental health? And when you decide what that is, then you're going to put a couple things into your calendar that will actually make that happen. And then again, the final thing that we're going to do with each of these questions is this catch-all 15 minutes at the end of the week, where we're going to set a timer and check in with yourself, and you're going to ask these 3 questions. You're going to spend 5 minutes or less on each question to just check in and celebrate the wins, course correct if needed. Don't beat yourself up if it's not happening. Just get yourself back on track. And then that brings us to question number 3. On the last day of school, how do I want to feel about my relationships with my family? So we know how draining and how demanding our jobs are. But the relationships that matter the most, my relationship with my wife, with my daughters, they're so important to my overall well-being, and the same is true for you. Whoever is in your inner circle, whoever is your family, your loved ones. And so I want you again to visualize the last day of school. You're at your desk. The teachers have left. The students have left, started their summer break. And you're sitting there and the school's starting to get quiet. How do you want to feel about your loved ones? Do you want to feel like you're connected and that you've been present with your loved ones? You certainly don't want to feel that guilt that you've experienced in the past with not, the school invading so much time that you just can't be present. Do you want to feel like you've spent intentional time nurturing those relationships and being more effective at balancing work and home and all your responsibilities? Listen, I have regrets about, the time that I didn't spend with my wife, that I didn't spend with my daughters. And that got better because I got more intentional, but I don't want you to have those regrets. And so we're going to ask ourselves that question, and then we're going to do something about it. So a couple of suggestions when you decide how you want to feel, then you have to ask yourself, okay, what would make that possible? And again, it has to do with your calendar. So I think one of the biggest ways to do this is to schedule intentional device-free time into your schedule with your loved ones. And I think the device-free part is key, because our smartphones are the electronic leash and the portal to all of the work at school. And it's always with us. And that means that it's just one tap away from being in your email inbox or, doing work for school. And I know that everyone's at a different season in their leadership journey. Everyone has a different sized school. Everyone has a different sized team, from one to many. And that, one size doesn't fit all when it comes to what's possible, when it comes to your ability to be present at home. But it's really, really important for us to put away our phone and to avoid school emails for at least a portion of the weeknight and the weekend, and to focus on that time with our loved ones, our spouse, our partner, our children. Maybe you have an elderly parent that lives with you. We don't want to have those regrets. And so how are we going to do this? Well, you're just going to decide, how do I want to feel on that day? Get specific on that last day of school, and then decide one thing that you're going to do and put it in your calendar. And if you're struggling for a suggestion on that one thing, is to schedule in some device-free free time. Maybe it's the first hour after you get home. And then you have to check in with work a little bit, later after you get home. But, and then, the third or the final thing with each of these 3 questions is that you're going to schedule 15 minutes at the end of the week where you're going to check in with yourself. You're going to ask these 3 questions, 5 minutes per question max. And then you're going to celebrate the wins. You're not going to be too hard on yourself if you don't do the thing. And then you're going to just get back on track. So the big takeaways are, we want to have the best 2025, the best start to 2025. We want to have an outstanding second half of our school year. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, first we're going to visualize that it's the last day of school and that you're at your desk. And you're going to ask yourself these 3 questions. Number 1, on the last day of school, how do I want to feel about my work? How do I want to feel about my job at school? Number 2, on the last day of school, how do I want to feel about my mental health and physical health? And number 3, on the last day of school, how do I want to feel about my relationships with my loved ones? And you're going to then pick 1 or 2 things that you want and schedule it into your calendar and make it a regular thing every week, every day, or at least weekly. And then once a week, at the end of the week, you're going to just review and just take some time to reflect and adjust. And, a final reminder that, and here's your call to action as well. In the show notes at theprivateschoolleader.com/episode 116, I'll put an easy-to-use worksheet there that'll have the 3 questions that will help you to just go through this, print it out, and just jot some things down and then put it into your calendar. Okay. As we wrap up the episode, I want to give you another free gift, and that is called 5 Strategies to Help You Work with Difficult Parents. And we know that working with parents is part of the job, and that most of our parents are great, but some of them can be pretty demanding and emotional and difficult. And this guide will give you the tools that you need to build better relationships and have better meetings with the difficult parents at your school. And so go to theprivateschoolleader.com/parents to grab the 5 strategies to work with difficult parents. And then I have one last question for you, and that is, what is your biggest problem at school right now? What's your biggest problem at school? Well, I would love to hear more about that, and I would love to work with you one-on-one and help you solve that problem. And I have a few coaching spots open right now, and you could set up a free 20-minute get-to-know-you Zoom call with me just by going to theprivateschoolleader.com/coaching so that I can hear more about the biggest problem that you're trying to solve, and I'd love to work with you on that. And I'd love to hear from you. You can shoot me an email at mark.o.minkus@gmail.com and tell me what's a strategy that you've heard on the podcast that you're using, and or what's your biggest pain point right now. And please subscribe to the podcast. New episode comes out every week on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. And while you're there listening, if you would rate and review the podcast, it helps the algorithm push it out as suggested content to private school leaders all over the world. And I've been your host, Mark Minkus. I just want to say how much I appreciate you and the amazing work that you're doing at your school. Thank you so much for taking some of your precious time to join me here today. And I will see you next time right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. And until then, always remember to serve first, lead second, and make a difference.